My name is Emily. I am 27 years old, and I am from Canada. I have light brown hair, straight and long, and green eyes. I am not very tall, maybe 5'4". My friends say I am quiet, but I love to meet new people. I like to observe and learn before I speak. I think deeply about everything, and sometimes I overthink. I work as a graphic designer. I spend most of my days sitting at my desk, drawing on my computer. Life was starting to feel very routine. Wake up, work, sleep, repeat. I felt like I needed more. I needed something new, something exciting. One day, while scrolling through photos online, I saw a picture of a place I had never heard of. It was a beautiful green field with mountains in the background. The caption said, Sapa, Vietnam, the land of rice fields. My heart raced. I had never been to Asia before, and Vietnam seemed so mysterious and unique. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I called my best friend, Lisa. Lisa, I said, my voice full of excitement, I want to go to Vietnam. Vietnam? She asked, surprised. Why Vietnam? I don't know, I replied. It just feels right. I saw a picture and it made me feel alive. I need to see it. I need to feel it. Lisa laughed. Emily, you're so spontaneous. But I think you should go. Maybe it's what you need. I started planning my trip the next day. I felt nervous but also excited. I didn't know what to expect. When I arrived in Vietnam, the air felt warm and humid. It smelled different from Canada, like fresh herbs and spices. The streets were alive with sounds, people talking, motorbikes honking, and street vendors calling out to sell their food. A man at the airport held a sign with my name on it. Emily? He asked, smiling. Yes, that's me, I said. I'm Tran, he said. Welcome to Vietnam. I will take you to your hotel. We walked to his car. The ride was bumpy, but I didn't mind. I looked out the window and saw tall trees, colorful buildings, and so many people. Women carried baskets on their shoulders, filled with fruits and flowers. Children ran and laughed, playing on the streets. At the hotel, the receptionist smiled kindly. Welcome, Miss Emily, she said in soft English. Please let us know if you need anything. Thank you, I said, feeling a little shy. That night, I sat by the window in my room. The city was alive with lights and sounds, even in the dark. I felt something I hadn't felt in years: curiosity, excitement, and a sense of adventure. I made the right choice, I whispered to myself. The next morning, I woke up early. The city was already awake. From my window, I could hear the sound of motorbikes and people chatting in the streets. The air smelled like something I couldn't quite describe: spices, maybe, or grilled food. After breakfast, I decided to visit the local market. Tran, the driver from the day before, had offered to take me. Good morning, Tran, I said when I got into his car. Good morning, Emily, he replied with a smile. Are you ready to see the market? It is very busy but very interesting. Yes, I'm excited, I said. When we arrived, the market was crowded and full of life. There were stalls everywhere, selling colorful fruits, vegetables, and flowers. Women in traditional Vietnamese hats, non la, called out to customers. The smell of fresh herbs, like mint and coriander, mixed with the aroma of fried food. Here, Tran said, pointing to a stall. You should try this. It's Ban, a Vietnamese sandwich, very popular. The vendor handed me the sandwich with a friendly smile. It's good, he said in English. I took a bite. The bread was crispy and the filling had a mix of sweet and sour flavors. This is amazing, I said. Tran laughed. Vietnamese food is the best. As we walked, Tran told me about the market. People come here every morning to buy fresh food. Families cook together. It is very important in our culture. I watched as people bargained with the vendors. Even though I didn't understand their language, I could see the energy in their interactions. Later, Tran suggested we visit a temple nearby. It is quiet there, he said. You can learn about our traditions. The temple was beautiful. The roof curved upward and the walls were decorated with golden dragons. Inside, the air smelled like incense. People were praying silently, bowing their heads in front of statues. Tran explained, this is a Buddhist temple. Many Vietnamese people are Buddhist. They come here to pray for their families, their health, and their future. I walked around quietly, feeling a sense of peace. The sounds of the city felt far away. As we left the temple, an old man sitting outside called out to Tran. They spoke in Vietnamese for a moment, and then Tran turned to me. He says you should visit his village, Tran translated. It is not far. The people there are kind, and they have many stories to tell. A village? I asked, curious. Yes, Tran said. But it is a small place. Not many tourists go there. They believe in old traditions and legends. Legends? I repeated. My curiosity grew stronger. Tran nodded. I can take you there tomorrow, if you want. I smiled. I would love to go. That night, back in my hotel room, I couldn't stop thinking about the village. What kind of legends did they have? What stories were waiting for me there? The next morning, Tran picked me up again. I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. We drove for about an hour, leaving the busy city behind. The streets became smaller, and soon we were surrounded by green fields and mountains. Is this the village? I asked as we entered a quiet area with small wooden houses. Yes, Tran said. This is Balang Village. The people here live simply. They farm, make crafts, and tell stories. As soon as we arrived, a man in his late 40s approached us. He wore a wide smile and waved enthusiastically. Hello. Welcome, he said in broken English. This is Mr. Hai, Tran explained. He is the village guide. He will show you around. Nice to meet you, Mr. Hai, I said, shaking his hand. You come for stories? Mr. Hai asked, his voice warm and inviting. Yes, I replied. Tran told me your village has many legends. Ah, yes, he said, nodding. Many stories, old stories, come. He led me through the village. Children ran past us, laughing and waving at me. The houses were simple, made of wood and bamboo. Some people sat outside, weaving baskets or preparing food. We stopped under a large tree where a group of elders sat in a circle. Mr. Hai spoke to them in Vietnamese. They nodded and smiled, then pointed toward the mountains in the distance. They say you must hear about the lost temple, mister? Hai said, turning to me. Lost temple? I asked, intrigued. Yes, he said. It is deep in the jungle. Very old. Some people say it is haunted. Others say it has treasure, but no one knows for sure. I leaned in, captivated. Has anyone been there? Some have tried, he said, lowering his voice. But they say the jungle protects the temple. It is hard to find. The paths disappear. People get lost. The way he spoke sent a chill down my spine. Do you believe in the legend? I asked. He smiled mysteriously. Every legend has some truth. Maybe the temple is real. Maybe it is just a story to keep people away, but if you want, I can show you the path tomorrow. I hesitated for a moment. The idea of exploring a jungle to find a mysterious temple was thrilling, but it also sounded dangerous. Do many tourists visit this place? I asked. Mr. Hai shook his head. Not many. Most stay in the city or the rice fields. They do not come here. I felt special, like I was being led into a secret world. Okay, I said finally. Let's go tomorrow. Good, he said, smiling wide. You are brave. I will prepare everything. That night, As I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about the temple. What would I find there? Would the jungle really try to stop me? The next morning, Mr. Hai came to my guest house with a big smile. Before we go to the jungle, he said, "You must see our festival. Today is a special day." "A festival?" I asked, curious. "Yes," he replied. "It happens only once a year. You are lucky to be here today." The festival began in the center of the village. Women dressed in bright silk dresses carried trays of food to a large wooden table. Children ran around, laughing and waving colorful flags. Music played from instruments I had never seen before, and the rhythmic sounds filled the air. "This is amazing," I said, looking around. "It is called TGT Chung Thirst," Mr. Hai explained. "The Moon Festival. We celebrate the harvest, the moon, and family." He handed me a small round cake. "This is Ban Chung Thursday, mooncake. Try it." I took a bite. The pastry was sweet, with a creamy filling that tasted like lotus and nuts. "It's delicious," I said with a smile. "Good," Mr. Hai said. "Now, come. You must see the dances." We walked to an open area where villagers had gathered. A group of dancers, wearing lion costumes, moved to the beat of the drums. The lions jumped and twirled, their colorful fur swaying with every step. "The lion dance," Mr. Hai said. "It brings good luck and scares away bad spirits." I watched, mesmerized by the energy and beauty of the performance. The crowd clapped and cheered, and I couldn't help but join in. As the sun set, the village transformed. Lanterns were lit, casting a warm glow over the streets. The villagers gathered near a fire where elders began to tell stories. Mr. Hai motioned for me to sit next to him. "This is the most important part," he whispered. An old woman stood up holding a bamboo stick. Her voice was soft but clear as she began to speak in Vietnamese. Mr. Hai translated quietly for me. "She tells the story of the moon goddess in the lost temple," he said. "The goddess protects the temple. She hides it from people who come with bad intentions. Only those with a pure heart can find it." The villagers listened intently, their faces lit by the flickering fire. The story felt magical, almost like a dream. After the story, Mr. Hai handed me a cup of tea. "This is special tea," he said. "It is made with flowers that grow only here." I sipped it carefully. The taste was floral and slightly sweet. It felt warm and comforting. "Tomorrow, Mr. Hai said, his voice serious, "we will follow the path to the jungle, but tonight, enjoy. This is our way of life." That night, I felt like I was part of something bigger, a tradition that had existed for centuries. The festival wasn't just a celebration. It was a way to connect with the past, the land, and the people. As I walked back to my guest house under the light of the lanterns, I thought about the temple and the moon goddess. Was I ready for what I might find? The next morning, Mr. Hai was waiting for me with a backpack. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice calm but serious. "Yes," I said, though I felt a mix of excitement and nerves. Tran had given me a flashlight and a bottle of water before we left. "Stay close to Mr. Hai," he said. "The jungle can be confusing. Be careful." We started walking on a narrow dirt path that led out of the village. The air was humid and the smell of earth and plants filled my senses. Birds called from the treetops, their songs mixing with the rustling of leaves. "This jungle is alive," Mr. Hai said as we walked. "It watches us." "What do you mean?" I asked, looking around. He smiled slightly. "You will see." The path grew steeper and darker as the trees became thicker. The sunlight barely reached the ground. I felt a strange energy, like the air was heavier here. As we climbed, Mr. Hai stopped suddenly. "Do you hear that?" he asked in a whisper. I froze, listening carefully. At first, I heard nothing. Then faintly, there was a sound, a soft whisper like wind moving through the trees. But there was no wind. What is that? I asked, my voice shaking slightly. Stories say the jungle whispers to those who come too close to the temple, Mr. Hai said. Do not be afraid. It is only trying to test you. I nodded, trying to stay calm, but my heart was racing. We continued walking, and the path became harder to follow. Vines and roots seemed to grow in strange patterns, as if they were trying to block our way. Twice I tripped over them, but Mr. Hai helped me up each time. Almost there, he said. Then I felt a cold breeze on the back of my neck. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there. Are we alone? I asked, my voice trembling. Yes, Mr. Hai said firmly. But the jungle makes you feel watched. It is part of the legend. The trees seemed to close in around us, their trunks tall and twisted. I felt small, like I was being surrounded by something much bigger than myself. Finally, we reached a clearing. In the center stood a stone structure covered in moss and vines. It was the temple. There it is, Mr. Hai said, his voice quiet, almost like a whisper. I stared at the temple, feeling both awe and fear. The air around it felt colder, and the whispers seemed louder now, as if they were coming from inside the temple. Is it safe? I asked, Mr. Hai didn't answer right away. He stepped closer to the temple and placed his hand on one of the stones. It depends on you, he said. The temple reveals its secrets only to those it trusts. I wasn't sure what he meant, but I felt a pull, like the temple was calling me. I took a deep breath and stepped closer. As I stepped closer to the temple, I noticed the carvings on the stone walls. They were intricate and old, showing images of people, animals, and something that looked like fire. This temple's very old, Mr. Hai said, built before anyone in the village can remember. The story says it was a place of protection during war. What kind of war? I asked, running my fingers gently over the cool, mossy stone. A war many years ago, he explained. The people in this area were in danger. They came here to hide. The temple kept them safe. How? I asked, my curiosity growing. Mr. Hai didn't answer right away. Instead, he motioned for me to follow him inside. The entrance was narrow, and I had to duck my head to pass through. Inside, it was dark and cool. The air smelled of damp earth and stone. My flashlight illuminated the walls, which were covered in more carvings. This way, Mr. Hai said, leading me to the center of the temple. There, in the middle of the room, was a large stone tablet. It was cracked in some places, but the carvings on it were still visible. Mr. Hai knelt beside it and began to speak softly. This tablet tells the story, he said. It says the temple protected the villagers by confusing anyone who tried to harm them. Soldiers would enter the jungle but could never find their way out. I felt a chill run down my spine. Do you think that's why the jungle feels so alive? Yes, he said simply. The jungle and the temple are connected. They protected the people here, and the people promised to take care of the temple forever. I stared at the tablet, trying to imagine what it must have been like villagers hiding here, scared for their lives while the jungle shielded them from danger. What happened to the people who built this? I asked. Some stayed in the village, he said. Others left after the war. But the promise remains. The villagers still protect the temple. That is why we don't let many people come here. As I stood there, I noticed something else, a small opening in the wall near the tablet. It looked like a doorway, but it was partially blocked by stones. What's in there? I asked, pointing to it. Mr. Hai hesitated. That is where they kept their most valuable things, he said. Food, tools, and other items to survive the war. But some say they left behind more than that. More than that? I asked, stepping closer to the opening. Some say there's a treasure, he said quietly. but no one has ever found it, and maybe it is better that way. I crouched down to look inside. The air from the opening was colder, and I felt my heart race. Was there really a treasure hidden here? Or was it just another part of the legend? This temple holds more than gold or jewels, Mr. Hai said, standing behind me. It holds the spirit of survival. That is the true treasure. His words stayed with me as we left the temple. I couldn't stop thinking about the villagers and their connection to this place. It wasn't just a building, it was a symbol of their strength and unity. As we walked back through the jungle, the temple still lingered in my mind. Its quiet strength, its age, and the stories it held seemed to echo in my thoughts. The jungle felt different now, less mysterious, more alive. I could feel its history in every sound and shadow. Mr. Hai, I asked as we stopped to rest near a tall tree. Do you think the temple's secret should stay hidden? He smiled gently, his eyes wise. Yes, some things are not meant to be found by everyone. The temple was a part of this village's soul. Sharing it too much could break its magic. I nodded, understanding his words. The temple wasn't just a place. It was a memory, a legacy, something that had survived against all odds. It was a reminder of what people can do when they stand together. As we reached the edge of the jungle, I turned to look back one last time. The trees stood tall like silent guardians, protecting the temple and its story. Thank you, Mr. Hai, I said, for trusting me with this. You have a good heart, he replied. The temple knew that. When we returned to the village, the sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple. The villagers were lighting lanterns again, preparing for the night. They greeted me warmly, some offering food and smiles. That night, as I sat by the fire with the villagers, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. The simplicity of their lives, their connection to the land, and their respect for history had taught me something valuable. I thought about my life back in Canada. The routine, the endless deadlines, the feeling that something was missing. Here, in this small village, I realized what I had been searching for, a sense of purpose, connection, and belonging. The next day, as I packed my bag to leave, Mr. Hai came to say goodbye. You will return one day, he said confidently. I hope so, I replied, tears forming in my eyes. Take the stories with you, he said, but keep the temple's secret safe. I will, I promised. As I boarded the bus to leave the village, I looked out the window and saw the villagers waving. Their smiles were warm and genuine, and I knew I would never forget them. The temple, the jungle, the legends, they had all become a part of me. They had shown me a world beyond my own, one where history and spirit lived together in harmony. Back home, I found myself thinking less about work and more about experiences. I started volunteering, meeting new people, and sharing the story of the village, not the temple, but the resilience and kindness of the people. The trip had changed me. It had reminded me that life isn't about rushing through each day. It's about stopping to listen to the stories, to see the beauty, and to feel connected to something greater.
Thank you for watching. Enjoyed the story? Subscribe to learn English through stories. Like, turn on notifications, and comment your city and country. See you next time.